Okay, so we are live streaming today.
Perfect, awesome. So welcome everybody this morning to the Arts Advisory Committee meeting. Thank you again for your patience for rescheduling this meeting from a few weeks ago. Technology's not always our friend, but it seems to be today, so we hopefully will get through the meeting. So what I'm going to do first is, since we don't have all the members on, maybe we'll move the appointment of a chair and a vice chair to later in the meeting. And I'll start off with the boring part of the meeting and give you all the procedural stuff that we do for clerks so that you have a little bit of understanding of how we operate and how these meetings operate. So I'm going to share my screen. And then, there we go. All right. So I'm just going to briefly run through some information for you. I'm just going to give you some information on the Council Committee Code of Conduct, the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, our procedural bylaw, and the Integrated Accessibility Standard Regulation. So this committee, since it's a committee of council, is covered by the Council and Committee Code of Conduct. It augments provincial laws, policies, and bylaws, and it basically provides general standards to the conduct of a member of a committee. So integrity, accountability, transparency, and you have to abide by legislation and municipal policies and procedures. If you do not, complaints could be filed to the Integrity Commissioner. Not to myself. I don't take care of code of conduct complaints. They're done all through the Integrity Commissioner. So if somebody is concerned about the way you're presenting yourself, whether you didn't declare a conflict of interest when you were supposed to, they can file a complaint with the Integrity Commissioner. So again, just building on the potential pecuniary interest, applies to an item that impacts financially the member. It could also be a family member or their spouse, and it's not always positive impact. It can be a negative impact as well. So you as a member, if this is the case, would need to declare your pecuniary interest prior to the matter being discussed by the committee. We have written declarations that we would send to you to complete. That's under the Municipal Act, that we have to keep a registry of those. You as a member, if you've declared a conflict, you can't vote, you can't discuss the matter. And if it's confidential, like a confidential closed meeting, you're to turn off your camera or not participate in the meeting. And the disclosure would be noted in the minutes of your pecuniary interest. So for an example, you could just, like, if you think that something's going to impact a property that is in your neighborhood, you could just say, I have a pecuniary interest because this piece of art is going to be located at a property nearby or something like that. So, but we would help you word the, if you advise us that you'd have a potential pecuniary interest, our staff can help you appropriately word something. We have the procedural bylaw, so that governs the procedure for the council and committees. It provides for a listing of all our committees, reference, advisory, and special, and it provides for the reporting structure of the committees to council. All meetings are open to the public. That's the reason that we had to forfeit our last meeting, because it wasn't technically open to the public. Notice of the meetings have to be given within 4 days in accordance with the procedural bylaw, and all our meetings, agendas, minutes, and everything are available on the City of Barrie's website. So the authority for basics of parliamentary law, the authority of the board is vested in its members. So all the members have equal rights and privileges and obligations. So basically what this is saying, that meetings have open debate. You know, you don't, you know, if you disagree with somebody, you do it respectfully, and only one item of business is to be considered at a time. Majority rules, the rights of minority must be protected. So even if you don't agree with something, that's fine. There's all different opinions on the committee, so everybody may not agree on every topic time to time, but the fact is just to be respectful of the decisions that are made. And you could potentially have people provide delegations to this committee. And again, just to be respectful of those people that attend the meeting, ask open-ended questions, and it's just basically participation by committee and the public. So the role of the chair is to preside over the meetings and provide leadership, provide decorum. So basically, order of speakers, following the agenda, helps craft motions with the assistance of our staff, calls the vote, and decides on the order of the questions. So if there's an amendment, if there's just a question, and how to deal with those in a specific order. The role of the committee members is to ensure that you attend so that we have quorum for all the meetings, attempt to gain consensus on decisions, adhere to the terms of reference, bylaws, code of conduct, and any other types of legislation that may apply to the committee. The role of committee support clerk, which is Brandy, is she prepares and distributes the agenda, gives notice of the meetings, she'll record the minutes, she'll assist the chair with procedural issues, keeps the records of the committee, and well, we don't book meeting space right now, but we'll book our Zoom meetings and contact members as required. So this is kind of the reporting structure for the Barrie Arts Advisory Committee. So you're an advisory committee, you report up to the City Building Committee, which is a reference committee. So they will review your recommendations. They can make amendments to your recommendations, and then they would flow up to General Committee. And again, General Committee has the opportunity to make amendments to your recommendations, discuss your recommendations, and then they go to final approval in whatever shape or form they end up in to Barrie City Council. So the committee terms of reference will be what Stephanie and Rob will be providing their presentation on to help you develop the mandate and objectives for this committee. We have the compositions already been established. The term of this council, this committee right now, is till November 14th, 2022, but there is the opportunity for council to possibly recommend that it extend past that date if the committee is working well, and extend to the end of the 2026 term. If a member misses 3 consecutive meetings without an excuse from, without the committee granting permission, a member could potentially be removed from the committee. And some of the committees do have budgets, but this one does not at this point in time, unless Stephanie has a small budget for it, but we don't through our office. So some of the committees have a budget that you can spend on initiatives. And then we will be providing you with an integrated accessibility standards regulation training booklet, which you will need to sign the form and acknowledge it and scan and send that back to us. And then we will, we also will be sending out a member information form, and that's just to give us permission to share your emails and your contact information with the rest of the committee. And that's my presentation. I'm not sure if there's any questions, because I went through it very quickly. So, because mine, again, is the boring procedural stuff, and Steph's and Rob's is the more exciting, what the committee will be doing presentation. So, no questions? So I think we will pass it off to Stephanie then, and Rob.
Oh, I'm finding my unmute here. Sorry about that. Perfect. So what Rob and I have prepared, I apologize here, is a bit of an overview on each of our departments, our mandates as it relates to how it touches the arts and culture sector, just to give you an overview of what we do and what we're all about, because it does cross over to departments. We'll share a little bit about on some of the initiatives that each of us are working on. And then I think I'm hopeful that it will plant some ideas on some of the roles that this committee could play in supporting where we're headed from that lens. So I'll go ahead and dive in and happy to answer any questions. So bear with me while I get my screen share here. Ta-da, share. I'm just getting you all back because I lost you all here. You can see my screen. Yes, perfect. You think we've done this enough that it should just be super easy, but it always feels awkward. Okay. I do not want to give, I just want to play my show. There we go. Okay. So economic and creative development, our core purpose is really to unite and collaborate within the community to deliver supports, programs, and services that ignite economic growth and promote diversification, innovation, and resilience in business, arts, and culture. From an external brand perspective, you can find us at InvestBerry and CreativeBerry. And really, we came together as economic and creative development in late 2019, early 2020. Our goals as economic and creative development is to really position Barrie as a premier business investment destination, develop a robust entrepreneurial and small business ecosystem, cultivate a dynamic workforce and pipeline of talent. We want a vibrant downtown economic corridor, promote the growth of a diverse and sustainable arts and cultural sector, and really implement strategies to strengthen the development of some of our key sectors. And I think if we think about the arts and culture and what that contributes to community, you can see where that touches on all elements of our goals, the importance and criticalness of this sector and contribution. So within economic and creative development, we have tourism as a strategic economic driver, and that's a relatively new addition to our portfolio. We have arts and culture development, public art, our small business center. We also look at innovation and entrepreneurship. We have a business development team that's focused on some of the economic development fundamentals of business attraction, retention, and then we're also focused on supporting downtown development. So supporting us in the cultural development side is Amanda, who's on this call today. She is our full-time dedicated cultural development officer. So her real goals are to support the culture sector and stakeholders in growing and maintaining capacity, and then supporting council's strategic objective to nurture culture as an economic driver. She is a key implementer and administers our cultural grant program, and really drives a bunch of our related events such as the Barrie Arts Awards, which we are looking forward to bringing back, as well as Culture Days, which I think has grown into something pretty cool as we've had to adapt these last couple of years. And I think there is a wealth of opportunity going forward around education and opportunities to really support our culture sector. The other side that touches Arts Advisory Committee most directly is our public art coordinator, Carol Ann Ryan. This is a relatively new position we've brought forward. Just given everything that's happening, this portfolio is extremely active. And I know Janet is here from the Public Art Committee. And this role is really to help integrate that public art lens within the organization as it has opportunity and again touches development, touches, our parks and our public space development. You can tie it to tourism. So there's a wealth of things that public art does. And she oversees the temporary permanent public art projects on municipal property, and works with our Barrie Public Art Committee on doing some of that long range planning, and hopefully working towards a master plan for the city. So those are the two key roles that I think are most related to this group, along with myself. So I wanted to touch on some of the areas where I think we see where there might be some alignment or supports, or involvement from the Arts Committee. And by no means is this intended as a drawing the mandate. It was just more ideation from our lens. So really, I think helping spread the word, and being community, sharing information out to your networks about the work that we're doing. I think Culture Days, we've done some interesting pivots over the past couple of years. As much as we're over the word pivot, but we really have. And we've seen some really interesting engagement from organizations that maybe haven't been involved in Culture Days before and looking at it in new ways. And I'll just use the example, Amanda, and thank you for sharing it with me this morning. We actually have a ladies disc golf organization who are running a session on Friday that is around, from an artistic perspective or creative perspective, decorating golf discs and then becoming part of the program. So it's just an interesting way to think about how we're bringing different elements together and how could we build on that for Culture Days, because I think it's a great way to engage our broader community. The Arts Investment Fund, which is formerly the Cultural Grant Program, we've had a review, we've revamped the program. There may be some opportunities for the Arts Advisory Committee to get involved, whether that's supporting us with jury selection or some other pieces. I think there could be some exploration there. Our last culture plan was created in 2006. We do believe it needs an update, and we are hoping to put a proposal forward to council in 2023. So again, understanding where we're at with that, where we're headed, there might be some roles for the advisory committee there. There was also a market study done in 2010 around the arts and culture markets, and there was a report card presented in 2013. We are in process of reviewing all of those, so I think at a future meeting there might be some opportunity for us to provide some more detailed overview in that lens, if the committee sees that as a benefit. Programming and education needs, I think we would love to see, and Amanda and I have spoken about, are there more tools, resources for preparing for arts organizations, their growth, sustainability that could be brought forward? Would love to have some input from the advisory group on that. And of course, I did hit on the Arts Awards. We did not do one in 2020. We're looking to do 2021, but it would be celebrating 2021. So like an award season, you'll do it in 2022, but we're working on gearing up for that. And again, is there some opportunity, engagement, looking at the program from the Arts Advisory Committee? So those are just some things that we were noodling that we thought we'd share along with the group to populate your discussion. And the only other ask that we have in that thread of spread the word is related to our Barrie Performing Arts Center, the task force, and I know Councillor Riepma, you are very actively a part of that, and some others here. The task force is looking for feedback from the community. The survey closes on October 21st. Let's try that again, October 31st. And we would love to see or have some help spreading the word. We've had some good input, great input and feedback so far. It's about a 10-minute survey, but I think that would be very valuable and would love your support in sharing that out. So barrie.ca/performing arts center is where you can find it. And we do have some active postcards that give you the QR code. So there's the economic and creative development lens of culture development. I will stop sharing and welcome, open to answering any questions Or if we want to wait till Rob's done his piece, we could sort of tag team if that's an easier approach.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, so two things there. When in your priorities, you mentioned program/education needs. I was wondering if you could expand a little bit about like what that might look like or what sort of things you might have in mind.
Sure. And Amanda, I may poke you as well. I'll give my thoughts, and then you may have some things to add. So I think from our lens, in capacity building, grant writing is sort of I think, a fundamental, but I'd be really interested, how do we start engaging you in networking amongst each other more? And I know you do a lot of engagement, but how do we invite other, broaden that net and really find ways to gather the cultural community? And is that some panel discussions on best practices? Again, we're still in recovery. And I think in the conversations we've had with your organizations and the like, recovery isn't happening tomorrow, next year. Like, this is going to be an evolving process. So what are your needs informationally? And even, some of the other things we've talked about is governance. If you're operating a board, and how do you get more engagement or volunteer management? So beyond grant writing, what are some of the other things you need to support you in capacity building, being stronger? And are there ways that we can support that through programming? And Amanda, maybe I'll turn that over to you in case there's anything I'm missing here.
Yeah, Ian, I don't know if you would have remembered when we used to host the Culture Grows Here conference, but that was really sort of about municipal cultural workers coming together and learning from one another. That conference kind of phased out. I think, city realized that maybe it's not our business to be really hosting those kinds of conferences. There are many that happen that are in direct competition to it. But I think we would love to see in its place some of, like Steph said, some more of that professional development opportunity specific to our arts and culture sector and to the organizations. So be it workshops that are for individuals or for organizations or a combination of the two, summits, webinars, conferences, those kinds of things. We do also have a music strategy that we had talked about doing a music summit tied to that. So that's something that we've got in the back of our mind as well. But I think as we come out of the pandemic and as we start to get back to the new normal or whatever we want to call it, I think it's important that we can get the best information and feedback from our arts organizations and from our community about what's actually is needed rather than making any assumptions.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, so, potential collaborations between the city and arts organizations about ways that they could, provide workshops, webinars, additional sort of opportunities where there could be collaboration.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I have a question very quickly. Is there any discussions, and I apologize if it's a naive question, first day on the committee, is there any collaborations planned or have there been planned with education, with Georgian College or any other schools? It seems to me that that's a great way to spread the word and at the same time share some of the logistics of doing things. Many educational institutions have resources that they are willing to share, and at the same time, I think the city of Barrie could benefit from that.
Perfect. No, I appreciate, and I think asking all the questions is a great way to make sure we're all operating from the same place and uncovering things that we haven't looked at before. So again, maybe I'll start, and Amanda, then I'll get you to jump in on all the things that I've missed. But we do work closely with Georgian in their arts program. Our public art committee is very much connected. The Culture Grows Here conference predates me having the portfolio, so I believe that Georgian was very much integrated as part of some of those pieces. So I think there's definitely engagement, and we work very closely with Georgian overall. Is there an opportunity to broaden that, look a little more deeply? I would say that I think those are always things that we should be looking at. So I do think there's some base there and maybe potential for room to grow and expand.
Yeah, just to expand upon that as well, we've more recently done some really fun stuff with new students and especially with the international students program at Georgian College, engaging those individuals to help them feel more at home as part of our talent attraction, as well as in our previous iteration as the creative economy department, we even did like a study hall feature at the 5 Points Theater, where international students and those others who maybe were trying to build a bit of a network were able to come and hang out at Georgian Theater or at 5 Points Theater and use it as a study hall. So I think we're always exploring ways to engage the bright minds that are at Georgian College and find ways to keep those students here. So yeah, any ideas that you have, we're absolutely interested in hearing. Thanks, Jerry.
Any more questions for Stephanie? I forgot I was chairing the meeting. Okay, so I guess we can continue to Rob. Rob, go ahead.
All right, let me see if I can figure this out. All right, do you see the presentation then? Everything looks fine on your end? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time today. As Stephanie said, we're just going to have a quick run through of what our department is responsible for and some of the activities that we are engaged in, and obviously some of our future thoughts that we want to look at coming out of this COVID scenario. First off, I would just identify sort of what our presentation overview is going to be. I'm going to touch base with all of you about what the Recreation and Cultural Service Department entails. We'll talk about the organization chart so you can see what pieces we're touching on. We'll outline sort of the facilities and the theater areas of our department, as well as our programs and special events. We'll certainly talk about how our business and customer services impact our delivery of all of our programs that we operate. We'll certainly talk about some of our high-level KPIs, and so that we can identify what our key performance indicators are going to be. Then we're going to talk a little bit about, and I'll present about the department opportunities, which might have some reflection of what this committee can start focusing on, and some of the things that we can do to help this committee be successful and identify objectives moving forward. As I said, started the overview of the department around 2019, early 2020, as Stephanie identified. The city sort of went through a reorganization. The Recreation Services Department welcomed the cultural group to our portfolio, which was fantastic because there's so many alignments and efficiencies with that group that we were participating in, and obviously had a lot of synergistic opportunities with them, whether it was programmed activities or promoting special events or facility rental and upkeep areas, because we're all promoting a healthy living strategy within the city of Barrie. And it seemed like a really good fit for our team to grow in that area. And we're excited to be a part of that group and have them with us. The organizational chart is sort of broke out at this present time, is broken out as it's laid out here. We have a manager of recreation and cultural facilities that will oversee a number of our recreation centers as well as our theater venues. We have a manager of recreational programs, that's Steve Lee Young, and he oversees all of the programs within our facilities as well as the special events that happen within the city. The manager of recreation and business services is Dan. No relation to myself, and that would be a be a problem if we'd have to straighten that one out. But anyways, he's no relation, and he oversees all of our business activities as well as our client services portfolio within our centers. We have a very large budget in the city. Our budget is $28 million worth of revenues and expenditures that we have to manage. So it's very important that we keep that in track and that we monitor it throughout our processes. Within our facilities and theater group, we have 3 multi-use facilities and 10 standalone recreation facilities. Within our MRFs that we call them multi-use recreational facilities as a MRF, We get over 2.3 million visitors into the 3 buildings, which is Allendale, East Bayfield, and Holly community centers. Those 3 buildings alone pulled 2.3 million visitors through the doors. So it's a fairly hefty group of individuals, but we have an awesome connection to those individuals. So that's great to have them in, and we're looking to drive more and more people into those buildings. Within our portfolio, we also look at the Barrie Community Sports Complex, which is 125 acres out in the Midhurst area. Excellent ball fields, one of the best in Southern Ontario. So the team out there does a great job, and we do some excellent programming out there as well. So summer camps, et cetera, that are out there, and it's a great space. And if you ever have a dog, it's a great place to walk your dog, apparently. We get a lot of people walking their dog out there. We have ice and sport field rentals. We put over 850 contracts a year through our department for ice and sport fields. And that includes the Sadlin Arena. Now, the Sadlin Arena has the Colts there, the OHL hockey team within the city. It has 36 hockey games that are there every year, but we also have 27 other events, and those events include concerts, trade shows, speaking engagements, graduations. So we have a large contingency of opportunities in that facility, and so much so is that we're looking at, and we've had some requests from many groups to, because sometimes the 4,000 seat area is too large. And so some of the groups have asked for a smaller contingent area. And so we've looked at identifying a section of it off and making it a sort of a stage opportunity. Now, it's not obviously as sound controlled as a theater is, but there are a couple of groups that are very interested in anywhere between 800 to 1,200 seating capacities. And this is something that we've been working on with those groups. And I think Rock 95 is having the birthday bash there in the next little while. And that is actually one of the events that we're moving forward with that will be having 800 to 900 people in that space. So it's a great tie-in to the needs of our clients. We also have the 5 Points Theater at this present time that had 224 bookings and 10,000 people through in 2019. Obviously, through the COVID, we've had a bit of a challenge, and that number has dropped dramatically, but we are so excited to try and get out of this scenario and move forward. So drop two slides. We have programs and special events. Obviously, this group is very busy with a number of drop-in programs and register programs for our seniors and our children within our area. We are a High Five accredited program deliverer. That is a nationally accredited quality program status that we have to do a number of activities and trainings to ensure that our staff meet that criteria. So we're very excited, and it's very important for us to maintain this certification, and because it does give our programs high quality and be able to promote them as such. We also have an inclusion program that has over almost 300 people that are included in the program, and it's the integration piece is special needs individuals within our borders. We want to get them involved, get them out and connected, and so our integration program, our inclusion services program, gets them involved in those programs. We also oversee the beachfront in the summertime, and we get over, I think it's around 134,000 persons. People go down at that waterfront on any given year. So it's a very busy location. So when the lifeguards are out there, we had an excellent season this summer, tremendous amount of activity and a lot of action down there. So we also were involved in 3 major special events that we actually drive, which is Winterfest, the Canada Day, and the Downtown Countdown. Unfortunately, some of those had to be altered in the last year or so, and we certainly want to look at evaluating what was done in the past and how we can come out of COVID bigger and better than we were before. And that's certainly something that we're driving towards as we move forward. E-approval permits. So any permits that come into the facility, whether it's a special event at the waterfront or something along those lines, we have an e-approval program, and there's over 200 requests for permits each year that come through our program there that our special events team oversee. So it's a very busy and active portfolio. As I stated, our business and services and our customer services group lead a $28 million yearly budget. They obviously make sure that we are in line and that we're making the money that we need to make and control our expenditures as much as we can. It really is important, that tie in with our business services and our client services, so that we can react to the needs and the expectations of our clients as they come into our facilities, and how do we promote and market that better. So those are the types of things that department oversees, and we certainly are looking for opportunities to bring more revenue and keep our costs down as we move forward through our COVID response and into 2000, well, let's hope 2022 that we don't have any COVID responses, but maybe for the first part, but hopefully by the spring we're into a better position. Key to performance indicators, we do have a number of internal key performance indicators, and we tie them into council's strategic principles. We look at rec access participation. We have a number of people who are low income, and the rec access program is actually an opportunity that they can apply and get some funding support to be able to participate in recreational activities. That is a fantastic program, and it's been utilized much more this year than it has in the past. So it's been great to be able to help out the less fortunate and the people that have been impacted by the most by COVID. So these are a number, I won't go through all of them, but these are a number of KPIs that we look at. We look at utilization of our facilities. We look at rental opportunities of our theaters. We look at days of use. We look at facility cost per square foot, and we look at utilization of our sport fields, et cetera. So there's a number of indicators for us to review and ensure that our business is going in the right direction and supporting council's direction. So the opportunities obviously is the impact of COVID. We certainly want to try and return services back to the way they were, but also better than they were. And I think that's really something that we need to look at. As we come out of COVID, we've learned a few things about people and their comfort level. We feel that there's a real need to stay local. A lot of people really want to have those events and those opportunities within their community. They feel more comfortable in that space, and I think that's something that we need to look at as we move forward. And obviously, while we do that, we need to ensure that their safety is at the forefront. A number of people in our comments that have coming through our facilities is that they feel safe coming into our facilities at this present time because of the mechanisms that we have in place and how we've dealt with it through COVID. So that's been awesome. We've learned a lot. Our team has done a fabulous job of ensuring that we are opening up slowly. Unfortunately, we are not putting on performances or large events at this present time, but we are looking at ways we can do that depending on what the COVID restrictions and the regulations are. So some of the short-term opportunities that we see moving forward is obviously that we need to work with our local organizations, our theater groups, our sport organizations, and look at opportunities to provide services in alternate delivery methods too. Is there an opportunity for streaming opportunities through other at 5 Points or other facilities? Is there opportunities to bring people in, but is it an opportunity to limit the seating or alter the seating, or even alter or utilize different facilities to house some of the events and the performances that need to happen? So those are the types of things that we're looking at. We do have a community group grant that we're working on, similar to the program out of Stephanie's group. Council has given us direction to look at a community group grant program that we are developing right now, and you'll probably hear a lot more about that in the late fall and early 2022. But there's an opportunity there for community groups to get some funding to help support some of their program that they are moving forward with when that rolls out. One of the keys, and I sort of identified here about the cross-pollination of the 5 Points Theater and the Sadland Stage. The Sadland stage, as we identified, is an opportunity for some of our organizations who are looking for a smaller type venue to put on a stage production, whether it's a concert for a smaller group of individuals, or whether it's a birthday bash, for example, that Rock 95 is doing. Those are the types of things that we see in the market that is starting to come towards us. And we needed to look at those opportunities. And when we said there was a 4,000 seat opportunity, a lot of people would move away from that because they just didn't have the draw for that. But the 1,200 to 1,400 seems to be something that they're really interested in. And so we're looking at that. Now, obviously, it's not, as I said before, it's not a theater, and the sound is not as controlled, but it does give an opportunity for some type of event to happen in those facilities. And we're very interested in building on that and having that cross-pollination with the skill set of our staff from 5 Points to help us out with the Sadland theater, Sadland stage as well. Obviously, we want to redevelop our shows and events and performances. There's a lot of programming out there that hasn't gone on. Obviously, we know that this sector has been the hardest hit. We want to work with those organizations to help move forward and try and bring them out of that and grow their events and their organizations to ensure that they are successful and continue to succeed. We would be supporting and obviously very involved. Myself is involved in with the Performance Arts Center Task Force. I'm looking forward to how that rolls out at the end of this year and goes through council, and what that looks like in the coming years and how we can support and be a part of that process as we look for a new theater opportunity. But while that is in the mix, we also have to look at the opportunity of Georgian College. We know that was an opportunity that during COVID, obviously there wasn't a need to have that theater in play. There might be, and based on the information that we have seen recently, we need to look at that opportunity and whether that is a viable opportunity for us moving forward. And council will have to review that moving forward because it is not part of our existing budget at this present time. But in 2022, it is certainly an opportunity that we can look at whether there needs to be an agreement with Georgian College in play, and is there something that we can look at. So that's certainly something that we're looking at, and one of the short-term opportunities that we think is available to us and to our groups, and try and see if Georgian College is an opportunity for us and moving forward. Sport tourism is another large area that we're looking at moving forward. We've been involved with economic and creative development and tourism, Barry, to bring large events to the city, such as curling events or an OMHA provincial hockey tournament or a very large ball hockey tournament, those types of things, looking at the sport tourism aspect, because that is a large area for us to be focused on as we try to move out of COVID. And that's the high level, and I apologize, it took a little longer than I wanted to, but I wanted to make sure that you guys had a great overview of what this department is responsible for, and I'm very interested in answering any questions that you may have.
Rob, Jerry Shaman, just had a question about your KPIs, and I've worked with KPIs quite a bit in the past in various capacities. I couldn't help but notice that there's a lot of under planning. Now, was COVID responsible for that? I guess my biggest concern was when I saw that the feedback from the public about the department and the activities was underplanned. Without getting that feedback on an ongoing basis, whether it be positive or negative, it's pretty hard to steer the ship.
Yeah, absolutely, Jerry. And all those numbers are specifically COVID driven over the last 2 years. And that's why you'll see all the red arrows moving down, because we know that those are the areas that are impacted. So as far as they were measured against our 2019 numbers, we did not alter those numbers because we want to get to 2019 or better when we move out of this. So when we look at the line that we're trying to achieve, was a 2019 was benchmark. So that's why you'll see a lot of the reds at this present time. So you're absolutely correct. It is a COVID impact.
Along that same line, the other thing I just wanted to mention, the study that was done on cultural activities and sort of the cultural climate in Barrie, seems to me it's 11, 12 years old. Wow, that's way out of date. So I would encourage that to be sort of put in high gear. Again, without feedback, without knowing what is happening in the community, it's hard to plan. This community has changed dramatically. I've been here almost 30 years now, and even in the past decade, that's when the last report was done, there's been some major changes.
Absolutely. And I know that Stephanie and I have had lots of conversation about that. And I think that, we identify objectives or opportunities for this committee, and that could be one of the most important objectives that we can look at. Probably this committee could help drive that scenario. Stephanie, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I think in having the portfolio join our team, certainly we identified the culture plan is 2006. There have been some other things done to look at the market and community, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's we are due for an update. So as part of our culture grant review and some of our report back to council, we did identify that as a 2023 item as we build to it, because we also need to understand with our cultural investment funds and with some of the programming and how we've evolved as a community, where do we need to be making investments? Where do we get the greatest return? Where have we seen growth? We also did undertook for the first time through economic development, a business data survey. And yes, it's not going to capture all arts groups, but it starts to look at spaces and places and looking at creative, who's here, who's where physically within the city. And so there are some things that I think from a data and starting to pull some updates that we're going to be able to put together to start pre-populating some updates. But I would suggest that we maybe do a bit of an overview for next Arts Advisory Committee meeting, if that's amenable to the group, to sort of give a high level summary of the culture plan from 06, some of the studies that have happened since. So we're all working from a level set on where we're at.
Does anybody have any more questions of Rob or Stephanie? Janet? Janet, you're on mute.
Yes, I have a questionnaire, a question about the questionnaire that you said that you showed that has the QR code, and that the last time you'll be able to access it and take it is October 31st. Where has this been shown or publicly announced, or like I have a good communication with the arts community, and I knew a questionnaire was coming out, but I never saw anything that said, go to this place and take it. So where would I find that, or where can, like, how have you let people know that it's available to take?
Sure. So the task force, we worked with our communications department. There was a media release that went out. There are radio ads running. It is in our Barrie Today, This Week in Barrie. We've put it out through all of our social channels. It has gone out to the Performing Arts Task Force with the thought to help spread the word. And the city's on Facebook, Twitter. So those are the channels that we've been using. There are radio ads currently running. And I believe it was mentioned, Councillor Jim Harris put forth a memo last night, actually, also identifying that the survey's out there. So I'm happy to have your feedback. We will continue to push hard, and we did actually ask for some additional marketing dollars to help push it out there. So we will look at how we do a greater push heading into these last 10 days or so.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie.
No problem.
We could get Brandy to send a link to the survey to the committee after the meeting. That could be helpful, and then you guys could disperse it to your organizations that you deal with. That would be helpful. And the mayor also announced it, like outside of the memo, he announced it at the council meeting last night too. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Ian?
Yeah, question for you, Rob. So this community group grant, when was that direction given? And can you expand on what that is to look like from an organization applicant perspective?
Well, council had identified for us to put together a program for a community grant, community opportunity grant. So we're looking at how it can be in relation to the one that Stephanie and her team operate, and how it can be different. It'll be focusing specifically on our community groups and more of their structural and you know, and again, it's fairly early on in this process because we're working through it, and the team is working diligently on identifying what opportunities and how we can best suit our community groups. But it'll be looking at some of the capital opportunities that people might have to help support their programs and to alter their programming needs and delivery methods.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so more to come. That's cool.
Yeah,
and then the other question, yeah, and then the other question I had was, in your presentation there, you talked about one of the priorities being the redevelopment of shows, events, and performances. From the city's perspective, what might that look like? Like what, you know, what, expand on that.
Well, I think, you know, we want to work with the user groups and what their needs are. And I think one of the things is, you know, how do we, you know, if 5 Points is an area that we have at this present time to work for, what are the areas that we can improve upon to make it more attractive to our performing arts groups? You know, where are the shortfalls that are coming out of the 5 Points Theater? And we want to look at those things and work with our user groups and ask those questions. Is it lighting? Is it sound? Is it Wi-Fi and streaming services opportunities? Is it, you know, there's a number of different things. Is it, you know, we want to work with them and try and understand where that is, and then we can start modifying our facility and so that it becomes much more interesting for the organizations and much more usable for the organizations that are out there.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, we have 2 more agenda items to discuss this morning. So the first one would be the appointment of a chair and vice chair. Are you comfortable doing that today, or would you rather wait till the next meeting when everybody is on the committee is here?
Personally, I'd prefer to wait.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we'll make that the first item on the next agenda. And then the second item we have outstanding is a schedule of meetings, to develop a schedule of meetings. We can either work through that today, or I can get Brandy to send out like a chart with some options for everybody, and then we could just poll the committee via email if that's a preference. Again, since not everybody is here. So what's the preference of those present?
I think the polling via email or developing a chart and just sort of plotting out everybody's availability, that's more effective. I think trying to do it here with committee members, I think would be difficult.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, perfect. So what we will do is I'll get Brandy we'll work through a chart and so it kind of fits in with our other committee meetings, and we'll send that out to you guys, and then we will try and get a proper meeting schedule developed so that we can have a November meeting. And we have a few agenda items that were mentioned by Steph and Rob that we could bring forward for the next meeting. And we'll have the first item on the agenda next meeting to appoint a chair and a vice chair. And then you guys can take over running your committee instead of myself. So does anybody have anything else before I adjourn the meeting? Scott, you're on mute if you're trying to mention something.
There we go. There we go. I was a little slow on my unmute. So for Rob, one of the items that he talked about was the Georgian College agreement review, whether it's viable or not for 2012. Is there a schedule on when that decision would be made?
I've got mute off. Okay, great. Yeah, Scott, thank you for the question. Yeah, we have, it's through the budgeting process. So we're having conversations with Georgian now to see if there is an opportunity, if council approves what we have submitted through an opportunity through our budgeting process. If there is an opportunity there, then Georgian College would and ourselves would have a agreement understanding and have to work out the details on that. But they are aware that we may be interested in the theater space. And so we are just waiting to see how that rolls out through the budgeting process. So if I'm not mistaken, and somebody will be able to tell me if I'm correct, budget approvals finished by the end of the year. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. So budget starts on, oh my goodness, starts in November, and the dates are like not in my brain right now, so I apologize. But the council approval of the budget is December 6th. So we just have to back up. There's service partner presentations, then general committee consideration, and then final budget approval, I believe, is on December 6th. Sure.
Thank you very much.
So just building on Scott's question then. So for instance, that could mean that by early next year, we would have an answer, or like what would that mean?
Yeah, and without being specific to dates, because it would depend on what the agreement and the discussion through with Georgian colleges. And as I said, we have preliminary discussions with Georgian now, but then once we get approval from council, we'd have to have the detailed discussions. So yes, early next year would be a time frame that we're aiming for if everything goes according to plan.
Can I make a suggestion? Is that okay? Would that be possible? So in the committee, some of the priorities of the committee that Stephanie laid out, would it not be beneficial then to perhaps add like an overseeing and assisting with the development and usage of the cultural spaces, like kind of like, and perhaps having accountability and transparency about that? So like regular updates on how those things are going, especially if we have representatives from the task force also part of this committee.
You guys are working on your mandate with Stephanie and Rob, so that would be something that could be further noodled as part of those discussions. Because this committee, we were going to allow the committee with Rob and Stephanie and their teams to come up with a specific mandate for this committee, which you'll start discussing at the next couple meetings, at least start like getting a starting point. So I think those are further discussions that will come out as you develop that mandate.
Okay, so I'm just going to put that out there then to Stephanie and Rob. Transparency and regular reporting on things like the Georgian, how the task force is going, that sort of thing. So we don't have to hear from individual members from within that task force, but rather from the city representatives who are part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I think we could probably, sorry to jump in, Wendy, maybe we circulate along with the survey information, the memo that went forward to council yesterday from Councillor Harris around the update on the performing arts task force. If that would be of benefit to the group, happy to do that. That
would be great. Thank you.
Awesome.
And then, yeah, if there's any additional notes or any higher level things that are happening, and like transparency and updates about that would be really beneficial.
Is there any further questions?
I just wondered if you had any homework that we should be doing. Like, I don't know, do you want us to take a look and find the 2006 cultural report and take a look at that, or anything you want us to do prior to the next meeting?
We could circulate all those reports in advance if that's helpful. And then maybe what Amanda and I and Rob can do is just do sort of a high level summary of where things are at. There's probably some really easy things that we can point to from an update perspective where we know we've moved the peg. Some others may require a little more depth of conversation, and I'm again, depends on when our meeting time is, how quickly we can dive into all of that, but we can certainly do an overview of where we're at. And again, where we've sort of made some marked measures forward, if that's okay with the group.
Great. Any more questions before I adjourn us for the morning? Okay, great. Thank you for everyone for your patience and reattending this second meeting so we get through the procedural updates and the department overviews. And Brandy will be in touch with some options for meeting dates and times, and we will get a schedule going and look forward to seeing you at the November meeting. So this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much.